Yeah, it's being live streamed right now.
It
All
says
right.
setting up over here. So hopefully it says it says done.
Yeah, it's I think we're
Hi
going.
everybody.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Part two of our 7 webinar series with Dr. Brian Lambert. He is author of The AI Lead. Got my well tattered copy right here with my name on top because I occasionally loan it out. And it's a tremendous book. As someone who's new to the BI space, it's been really instrumental in learning this new space. So, absolutely excellent book. Pick up a copy. But we'll be giving away 3 copies today as well. Brian, anything you want to mention about your book that I haven't already?
Well, I appreciate it. That's always humbling to hear other people enjoy it, and I've had quite an experience with this book. It's became a bestseller, and actually last week it won its ninth book award. One of them was in California, uh, in San Francisco area. This one was in New York City, one of the big book awards it's called. So it's a humbling experience. I never thought I'd be in this position. So I appreciate the opportunity to have so many great conversations with everybody as they try to figure out this space. And I think we're really excited here today to have another great conversation, Aaron. So yeah, thanks for having me. This has been a great series so far.
Yeah, last time we had some wonderful collaboration in the chat. Everyone, please do the same this time. We'll try to keep our eye on it and answer questions as we go. And at the end, we'll make sure to take a look at them and answer any questions that we didn't get to live. And everyone who asks a question, they're going to be in the drawing. We're going to be giving away 3 of Brian's book here. So please engage, chat with us, give us your insights, and win a book. All right, Brian. Last webinar was all about building the infrastructure to kind of drive intelligence in multiple different ways in the organization. This one is about the collaborative intelligence, and it's kind of linking humans and AI together, trying to make each other stronger, make each other smarter. What are we going to be talking about today?
Yeah, the idea that humans have unlimited potential and AI does too. So now what do you do? And how do you leverage it? And I think the more you understand the roots of AI and the foundations of AI, the more you can harness it to augment and to support not only your own personal goals, but that of the organization. It's such a great tool. It has immense computational power. What if you unleash that, even in a small way? What would that look like? And I think that's the key, is how do you get started? And we're going to spend a lot of time on that today. When you look at the idea of collaboration, and I really like how we framed this out. Strategy was last webinar. Now it's about, the idea of working together. But what does that actually mean? The idea of collaboration. And I think this is an interesting word that oftentimes we use in business or in other environments, even in school. We're going to collaborate with others. But what does that actually mean? I think when you think of everything that needs to be figured out, we can actually collaborate in many different ways. We can collaborate around what problem we're going to solve. That's a type of collaboration, if you will. There's another type of collaboration, which is, well, how do we actually implement something? And yet that's a different type of collaboration. Or a collaboration on how are we going to market and sell or persuade others. That's a different type of collaboration, different lens of collaboration. So there are many different ways in which to look at it, and the key here is to bring things together to make that happen. There really is no one size fits all, and I really encourage, and what we're going to do today is we're going to actually slow down on this concept of collaboration and unpack it a little bit. And we're going to use some real examples. We're going to share some stories, lots of stories, hopefully. We'll answer your questions in the chat. And, just want to pose the question here. What if you had a new tool that gave you explosive potential? Like, what would you do with that? Right?
So, Brian, in the past, I've wondered, right? Like every company, the vast majority of companies are saying that at least some of their employees are using AI to be more efficient. But those companies haven't been able to point to demonstrable gains in business or sales. Like they can't actually demonstrate the value of that efficiency. It sounds like, that's kind of what we're diving into today. Um, is like, what's the missing puzzle piece? Why is this not good enough? Everyone's using AI. What's the problem?
Yeah, and I think it's for what, right? AI for what? I think there's this idea that AI has potential, as I just outlined. There are many groups of people that want to explore that. However, where the work gets done, it gets fuzzy real fast. So, for example, am I supposed to use AI to help me write emails or not? Am I supposed to use AI to help me generate a report from a peer or not? Am I supposed to use AI with customers or not? Am I supposed to use AI to actually get my day done faster or not? There's so many questions about how it actually shows up at kind of what I call at the keyboard, where the work happens. And oftentimes, I mean, you hear it all. There's the folks like, oh, I can tell this is AI and immediately shoot it down. Or there's the folks that say, well, that's too much. And can you use AI to synthesize that? And you miss the point of what you're trying to achieve. There are, in a lot of ways, you end up chasing a shiny object, if you will, or a concept, as opposed to actually tackling an issue or solving a problem or figuring out what to say, how to say it, figuring out how to shape an initiative over time, the things that actually happen at the keyboard in our meetings. And I think that's the big thing about AI is we're so as humans in the workplace, we're often very, very heavily wired to this concept of getting things done. You hear it all the time. We're busy. I'm so busy. I've got so much to do. I'm getting more things to be, got more things to do. I got to get it done. AI is such a massive lift to figure out how to use it and wield it that there's not a lot of space for it at the keyboard, which really puts a dilemma in front of folks. You either use it to stand out and differentiate, but when you start doing it collectively, you end up exposed a little bit, and there's some professional risk, perhaps. And where there's risk, you end up with a bit of anxiety, so to speak. So I think that's what's going on is the promise versus the reality. And I see both sides, and I deal with both sides on a daily basis.
Let's talk about how to navigate that.
Yeah, when you look at what it means to be creative today and take action and put yourself out there and get outside your comfort zone, which is a big reason why AI is here, it's really making people rethink what they're doing, how they're doing it, and take action in a different way. You end up in a space of, okay, I'm going to engage differently, but my workplace isn't necessarily set up this way. So it's not my job, in other words, set in a more traditional way. In other words, I feel like I'm in a space where it's not my job, or I feel like I'm trying to explore something that's above my pay grade, or the AI has opened my eyes to a whole new perspective, but I don't have time to share it. It's one of those things where with AI, you end up in a space of how do I integrate what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, what I'm learning into my day to day. And when I do that, it actually changes how I show up, and that puts people on the back foot, the people around me. So that's part of this is the behavior change challenge of this, which I explore a lot. The other piece of it is when you look at taking action, you can be overly confident in what AI gives you, and if you don't understand the subject matter, you can actually show up and kind of in a mode of a pseudo expert, and then that first question it all implodes, you know and you're not able to have those conversations. So, though, again, we're in the space of all this of how do we balance this opportunity with what's happening in the day to day, especially in an environment that doesn't necessarily reward risk taking. You hear that a lot in the past. You've heard that in a lot about risk taking, but today's business world is not necessarily supportive of massive risk taking, right? For environmental factors, and even professional development factors. So we're going to explore that today of where does it all come together? What does it all look like? And it has to do with conversations and the idea that what I'm trying to achieve on a daily basis can actually be valuable, but I have to engage others to make that happen. And I need to collaborate. And that's what we're going to explore today.
So a leader trying to navigate, the balance that you're describing between creativity and efficiency. What's their biggest challenge typically? Is it like process and workflow? Is it the technology itself? Is it the mindset?
Yeah, it's definitely not the technology. The technology is incredible. I mean, it is, the more you explore the technology, the more mind-boggling it is. It's amazing. Tech can do it. Tech can do whatever you need it to do. And I'm being overly simplistic. Of course, it can't do everything, but it has a lot more potential now than it ever has. Most of the challenges and the friction happens in the mindset. Because with AI, you end up in a space of what you thought was true isn't, because AI is a great helper of seeing things that perhaps you hadn't seen before. You're also in a space of being supported enough to take a new action because you get equipped with the knowledge and perhaps even the role play, if you will, to take action. But now you're outside your comfort zone because you haven't been used to taking that action because you're in your silo, so to speak. And then the final thing is that what got me here isn't going to get me there. In other words, I'm a coder. I'm a professional coder. This vibe coding stuff's gonna, you know, really be a problem, and it's never gonna work. And then the next thing you know, you're out of a job because somebody can build an enterprise app faster in a whole new way. And I think you're seeing a lot of that, and not to be too academic, but if you look at major shifts in human society, moving from one age, from farming to industrial, we're definitely in the space here of moving from industrial to digital or industrial to the AI age. And when you look at all the ingredients of that, that's happening right now. So how do you lean into that instead of put your head in the sand and hunker down? And it has to do again with this idea that we're talking about today, which is collaboration and synthesis, which we talked about on the last call, the last webinar, synthesis versus analysis. This one we're talking about collaboration versus, siloism, if you will, hunkering down and putting your head down in the sand. And that's the biggest challenge, is that mindset to do that.
That's really interesting to hear. I do know the one thing that technology can't do, it cannot crochet. So,
You tried.
well, I think it's the only thing that we can still do that technology can't.
It's an interesting concept there because, back a long, long time ago when I was learning how to sell, there's a book that said you cannot teach a kid to ride a bike in a seminar. So you can sit around and talk about it. AI is really good at that. It'll sit around and tell you everything you need to know, but it can't do it for you. And so you can end up being the smartest person learning how to ride a bike in a seminar, but the rubber meets the road, so to speak, when you get out there and actually start pedaling. And I think that's the biggest thing that lies ahead for folks, is the actual, getting out and doing things with AI, you
Mm,
know.
love it. We got an excellent question in the chat around accuracy and hallucinations, and we're going to circle back to that shortly. Our next slide here, I'm really excited to talk about and hear your thoughts on, Brian, because to me, there's only three areas in an organization where all important information resides. It's either in the data, the documents, or in somebody's brain.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of technology, the whole BI world has long been about surfacing insights to people, showing people stuff, giving people answers. And and what I like about this idea here is that with these three things together, they can make each other smarter and stronger. Um, there's certain information that you can only glean from each other. And I think that's missing out. And that's why this collaboration is so exciting to me. Brian, walk us through this idea around triangulation.
Yeah, it's the idea of triangulation. If you think about it from orienteering. If you're out lost in the wilderness, having 3 points of data is way better than having one. Or if you're out at sea, the ability to get that triangulation of what's happening, GPS wise, land, can you see the land, etc., landmarks. It's important to have multiple inputs of data. I think we've looked at that in the business world as, how many charts or graphs can I read, or what's our weekly report, daily report, right? Report. And I think those things done in isolation are not necessarily terrible, right? That's a data thing, and you can look at the data. But really, where I'm seeing the opportunity here to move forward and explore is that idea of, well, what do you think? Well, what is this showing you? And having that dialogue. And I think this is an important piece of the workforce today is the ability to kind of debate about things or have a dialogue. And so you can really do that with people. So you have data and you have people that are talking about the data, but you can't do that without some sort of asset, some sort of output, some sort of screen, something that creates a shared view, right? If you don't have a shared view of something, you can't really have a conversation. So one of the things about, for example, the medical field back in the day was a lot of perspectives about what to do with the human body, how to help people heal, all kinds of different schools. It was crazy, the different schools of medicine. But really, what advanced things was this concept of an anatomy book, like what is the human body? And if they didn't put that into the Gray's Anatomy book, so to speak, and didn't write it down, you can't really have a dialogue because you don't really have a shared perspective of what we're even talking about. And I see this a lot in marketing and sales and project management and even in data, the data analytics space, it becomes more about, well, we do it this way, not that way. Or, it's important to do it in a very prescribed way. Well, why? Because the methodology I grew up with, so to speak, dictates that we have to use certain words. When you take this idea of, well, what is behind it, or what do you see and what do you think? Now you're into a space of connecting dots and synthesis, like we've talked about before. And that's why triangulation is important. Without multiple data points, without the ability to move beyond and just see the obvious and move beyond the obvious, you're really into a space of, and there's scientific research on this, where you're reinforcing your own bias. And as much as the workplace is focused on overcoming bias and understanding that there's so many different perspectives out there, we've really done a terrible job at welcoming, confronting points of view. And I think that's a challenge that we have to overcome, is the ability to understand that differing points of view are a strength. And to have a different point of view when you're unified on a goal is even more strong. So I think that's the key, and that's why synthesis and triangulation are important.
I think it's really interesting when you talk about the point of view, and it's something I want to touch on later. Um, because to me, it is one of the only challenges with getting people and data together is that people all have their own spin on the data.
Hmm.
I'll talk more about a CEO who is mentioning that every week we have the same day, the same weekly business review meetings, and we're looking at the same data, and everyone's got a different story about it. So I'm excited to kind of circle back to that and get your thoughts on that point of view piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we
All right.
can we can share a little bit about that here. Like, the point of view, I think, uh, it can be a spark, and I think this is what I really wanted to drive home in this idea of collaboration is that if we're thinking through that we can collaborate to figure things out, we can take a moment to figure out how to proceed. We can collaborate around what to sell or how to move forward and sell a vision. We can collaborate on what's possible. Like, let's collaborate on what's possible here. Like, when was the last time you've done that? So I think collaboration has been really pigeonholed into this over rotation on getting stuff done, and that's not. It actually isn't collaboration. I'll give it that in my framework I'm outlining here in my brain is that it's maybe one facet of collaboration where you're collaborating to get stuff done. So we show up on a meeting, we got to talk really fast, we got all this stuff going on, we're all super busy, we're all multitasking. Hey, did you do this? Yes, I did that. What's the next action item? Make sure you follow up with that. So and so is on vacation. Okay, ready, go. Okay, so is that collaboration really? Um, and I think that's coordination, not collaboration. And so, what is collaboration then? Well, it's this idea that through the spark of disagreement, or through the spark of a new idea, or a spark of a different perspective, you take some time and create some space to figure things out. And that's a different mindset. The figuring it out mindset is completely different than the get stuff done mindset. And we're so wired on get stuff done that there's no space to figure it out. And that's the issue with AI, right? So in the figure it out mode, AI is amazing, but when you start digging into figuring things out, it doesn't fit into the timeline. It takes hours instead of seconds. It's in this space of creativity and synthesis and all of these connections, and you can get different documents. You can ask the chatbot. You can debate with the chatbot. You can debate with each other. Well, that all doesn't fit nicely into a get stuff done to-do list in a Pomodoro framework that, Agile and Scrum to death, where we put it in a Jira ticket or whatever we're doing to check off the box. And so you can't really do getting stuff done mentality in a collaborative world. They actually cancel each other out. So, and I could spend more time on this, but in a space of AI, what is AI for? Well, where the promise being is in the ideation, in the synthesis, but that's a figure it out motion. The world of work is wired in a get stuff done motion, which is automation and agents. So that's why agentic is picking up so much, is because, oh, I can automate that. I can automate that. I can automate that. I can automate that. Well, that's really great when you've got it all figured out, but who's doing the figuring it out? And I think that's the issue, is if we're all just sitting around doing things, like what are we actually doing? It's actually quite an amazing, just like when you start looking at like, well, why are we doing this way? It's actually a mind-boggling experimentation when you start asking, why are we having 12 meetings a day about this stuff and what's actually getting done?
I
So
think that's so insightful about coordination often being mislabeled as collaboration. It's different, but it reminds me of when Google used to force their employees to work on something different one day a week, because that's the only way that they would get those truly groundbreaking new ideas. We almost need the same thing with each other. We're so tactical all the time that perhaps we're losing some of the visionary opportunities.
yeah, well, we absolutely are. And I would say also that there are companies that have operationalized the figuring it out nature of things, and they're not telling anybody. And then but most of the world of work, the 90% is on the get stuff done, and it's kind of like we're getting stuff done right over a cliff, right? But it's not my job. It's not my job. It's not. It's above my pay grade. It's not my job. I have to get it done. I'm so busy. Well, where's the strategy? Oh, we don't do strategy anymore. That's for somebody else. So those types of things that have made the company successful are now just taken for granted. But if you frame it out as I gave it a bit of a exploration a couple of minutes ago. But if you look at it as there's a tectonic shift in the age of work, for example, I gave was from farming to industrial that took a couple hundred years. We're super compressed from industrial to digital and industrial to AI. So literally in your work life, you're going to see this massive compression in years. And so you have to really be I guess for lack of a better word, intentional and disciplined to get to the other side of things, right? So what are you doing to learn these things? What are you doing to practice? How are you engaging in data differently? How are you collaborating? And you have to be intentional. So the one day a week makes a lot of sense. That's 1/5 of your time, but it seems like so much time to do one day. But if you're not intentional, you won't make that space. And that's you have to make space for this stuff, in my opinion.
Mm, that's awesome to hear. We had a question in the chat about the risk of over-reliance on AI and fragmentation, and how can organizations be practical about auditing and recognizing when that's happening before it has a damaging impact and erodes creativity.
Yeah, that's a great question. There's many different ways to answer that. In the context of what we're talking about here, it comes down to if we're using AI to automate things versus we're using AI to create things or be creative. And in the space of being creative with AI, you can actually burn through a lot of money. Um, you can create a lot of things that don't go anywhere. So if you view AI as an R&D function, helping you with R&D, that's great, but fund it and harness it. But most companies don't have R&D functions. It's that's manufacturing, or it's the one genius in tech that's who's doing it, the one guy. But when you try to look at it as this is research and development for a whole new approach to going to market or in a function, that is you end up wasting a lot of money because you're letting employees practice on things that never see the light of day. So then what are they doing? And that makes investors and executives very nervous because then you take your eye off the other side, which is the getting stuff done side. So you have to operate, and I call it two pistons. So one piston is the get stuff done, automation, get it as fast as possible. The momentum that we've all had, and I try to share what that felt like. That over reliance on that and just pushing the button, you can still look at quality, you can look at consistency, you can look at traditional operational metrics. You can use customer feedback. I mean, if you're trying to automate with customers, they're going to tell you if it's, but are you really listening? And why are you listening? And that's the other, so that feeds to the other piece, which is to get the idea of, figuring things out. So if you're not intentional, we have a figure it out motion piston, piston two, alongside of our get stuff done automation piston, then all of the feedback from the get stuff done doesn't go anywhere. It just is somebody else's job. But if you have somehow operationalized that, hey, we're going to have a creative one day a week, we're going to have a creative function, we're going to have an R&D mindset. We're all engineers, and you know what? We all need to tinker. That then you can start catalyzing something. And so the risk is not having two pistons, the get stuff done, the figure stuff out motions. Not, and then the second risk is not being intentional that and being protective of the figure it out motion. And then not being able to support that because the figuring it out tinkerers are going to be they're going to be the renegades. They're going to be the people who are like, why are we even meeting right now? And boy, that's super disruptive. The why questions today, people just, they're super visceral reactions. And you got to make it okay to ask those questions, the why, the what, and get away from the how so much. And I think that's the biggest risk is the idea of that we're going to get stuff done right over the cliff. It might feel good in the day and it might make us all high five each other, but then all of a sudden we just got displaced by a competitor, you know? So how fun is this really? Right? So that's the risk to me. Bit of a
That's
strategic
so
one.
interesting. That feedback bridge is so crucial, the way you describe this, because without the feedback bridge, what do we get? We get a BI team or a data team, IT team, project manager team, management team that feel very busy. And they could
Yeah,
give you a laundry list of all the stuff they've built and done and improved. But then when you go ask the rest of the organization, they're like, I barely look at those dashboards. We're still doing everything the same. I still use Excel personally, right? And it's because of that lack of feedback.
that's right. Yeah, the feedback bridge is crucial. And the interesting thing is, when on the figure stuff outside, if you switch your mindset to use AI as an input, but on the get stuff done side, you use AI as an output, cranking out the outputs because you got to get done faster. So have it write me an email, have it do all these things for me because I got to go, got to go, got to go. That's the get stuff done, get stuff done side. So if you're using AI for that, the outputs there are completely different than the using the AI for inputs on the, figure it out side. So if you use it on the input side and use AI as that feedback bridge, that actually can help accelerate customer impact, customer empathy, business outcomes, because it's more in tune with the outside in, I call it. It's more in tune with that. The interesting thing about that, though, is the more in tune an organization becomes with the external environment, the more it disrupts the get stuff done crowd and the get stuff done motion and the get stuff done treadmill, which is highly disruptive to about 80 to 90% of the workforce. So you end up with quite a lot of friction there if you're not careful. And I think that's the upside, the opportunity, but it's also the risk, so to speak, is and I think that's why so many people are just in the spot of I'm going to hunker down. And then there's also executives who are like, we're just going to hire new people. I mean, I'm just being blunt with you, the conversations I'm having, right? Because it's how do you operationalize it and how do you get people along in this? Well, it comes down to on both sides, you've got to learn how to do it yourself, which means you have to be curious, which means you have to think about back to you the analogy of or the framework, the data, the documents, and who you're talking to, right?
And sometimes a team, you talk about leadership, just bringing in a new team. Sometimes a team will just say, "Oh, we need to just move to a cloud data warehouse. That's our problem." They'll just make technology the problem, act
That's
like
right.
this new 3-year migration is going to solve all those problems. And
Right.
it's really just passing the same problems to a just different piece of tech.
That's right. Yep. Absolutely.
So what should we do?
Well, I think for leaders, it comes down to what is our role as leaders. And I know that we're coming out of this space of operational management and the getting stuff done mentality is what makes you, famous. It's what you get paid for. Um, but it's almost coming back full pendulum now, where the people that are making the bank and the people that are making the money, that are getting these great jobs that are strategic, they're in the space of getting to the future state, which means they're exploring the and figuring things out, not just getting the stuff done. So I think the best way to do this is personally, professionally, and organizationally is to model this challenge on a team and actually embrace it. So instead of fencing these things off, say, look, we're going to model this way. So who out there is setting up a team right now to model the outside in reality to create the 1 day a week where you're going to figure stuff out instead of get stuff done? Who's operationalizing white space and making the white space okay and cool again? Who's actually building that feedback bridge? And then who's rewarding risk taking internally, not to get, and by that I mean the tinkerers, who's rewarding the hackathoners, the tinkerers that might have a new idea and funding that, because playing around in this space isn't like playing around in your garage. You actually are going to spend money, right? You have to fund this type of innovation. So but when you do that, you end up in a space where humans rally because they're moving towards something as opposed to, not doing anything. I had a conversation yesterday where the person was very upset because they felt like they couldn't do anything. And I think that's human nature. When you feel like you can't do anything, you're just in a space of a lot of angst. But if you're moving towards something and you feel like you're actually contributing, great things can happen. And I think that's the key here is how do you lean into modeling this two piston reality between figuring it out and getting it done, create space for collaboration and synergy and triangulation, use the right types of outputs and documents and data to have those conversations, and lean into this idea that we're all diverse in our thinking, but then unify because diversity in and of itself is divisive. Like the idea that we have diverse opinions, by the definition, it means we have different opinions. What you want to do is figure out how you're going to bring them together because it's the unity that gets you somewhere, right? So you can't just expect people to unify around that. The question then becomes, well, what can AI help us with in that regard? For example, who's using AI to model customers? Who's using AI to help bridge the gap between and model out a new strategy before you ever do it, right? So it's less risky, those types of things. And I think that's the power of both AI and human strengths is the opportunity, the possibility, if you will.
You mentioned everyone feeling like they're contributing, and I think sometimes we forget how important that is in all areas of the workplace. I think a lot of problems internally, like political problems that people have with their coworkers, stem from this lack of feeling recognized. Um, and you mentioned that in passing a moment ago, but it leads me to a thought, that a lot of our BI friends are facing, which is, is AI going to threaten my job security? Is AI going to limit my creativity? What would you say to teams or people out there who might be a little worried about either one of those things? Um, about being limited or replaced by AI, when ideally we should all be excited about being amplified exponentially by AI.
Yeah, I think it's real. Well, I know it's real. I get it, and it's valid. Um, and I think the question is, what are you going to do? All right, and there's some people who are going to make the strategic choice to just ride this out, and it's going to be fine. Um, and then there's going to be other people who try to lean into what can you do with it, and then there's the folks that are going to try to monetize it. I mean, you end up with all the different aspects here. And what we're framing out on this call is like, well, are you going to be an early adopter or are you going to wait? Are you going to take action or are you going to be told? And are you going to figure it out or are you going to get it done? And on the figuring it out side of all these things, are you going to head towards the opportunity or are you going to try to protect what you've got? And I think this idea of abundance, opportunity, possibility, they're not words that you often hear in the AI world. Um, it's the world of scarcity. It's the world of it's going to do things to me, not for me, right? And I think those are human nature elements of change. It's the same exact conversation you would hear from folks that first saw the Model T Ford rolling down their street. It's the same thing that horseless carriage is never going to go anywhere. The idea of a computer on every desktop is never going to go anywhere. That's ridiculous. We're never going to put a person into space. It's too expensive. We're never going to need to wash our clothes in an appliance that requires electricity. I mean, electricity is the world's worst. I'll never need electricity on my homestead, right? So if we amplify all that, we're kind of missing an opportunity here to move forward. And I see that because of social media and things that there's there's a lot of an ability to say, well, AI is doing all these evil things and taking all these jobs. And but on the healthcare thing that I've spent some time on healthcare, I've spent some time on insurance, I've spent some time in software development and all of these. There's so much going on with AI. It's mind-boggling what the opportunity is and what AI can do to move us forward. And I think it's going to be critical to many human advances. And actually, it's creating new job sets that never even existed before. So if you want to be the person who's the hunter and gatherer sitting around talking about the nuts and the berries that you foraged versus somebody out in the hunting party exploring the environment around them, that you can do that. But just be aware of the choice you're making and don't expect everybody to do what you expect, right?
You
So that's how I
mentioned,
that's how I think about it.
yeah, I like that. You mentioned laundry, and it reminds me of a joke, which was, I want AI to do, I'm butchering this already, but it's like, I don't want AI to read and write for me and make art for me so that I can do my chores, do my laundry. I want AI to do my chores so that I can read and write and create art.
Yeah.
And I think that's similar to what we hear from a lot of BI teams we talk to nowadays, which is we want to reduce the mundane. We want to automate the mundane. We want to be forward thinking and be working on more complex initiatives, move from telling the company hindsight to thinking about, foresight and making business decisions. So that's the way I like to think about it too, is the same way that I personally wish AI could do all of my boring stuff so I could just read and write. Data leaders can think the same way for their teams and get them working on more complex, fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. Great point. Totally agree.
All right, I really like this blueprint you've laid out for us.
Yeah, and I think if anything, hopefully you're getting the idea that hey, there's something else out here. I wonder what it is, or hey, maybe we can explore these things, or hey, I need to create space. How would you go about it? And it has to do with harnessing, human potential, leaning into conversations, leaning into the fact that many new ideas are coming out, many new explosive opportunities are right in front of so much possibility. And how do we actually lean into the fact that there's possibilities out there? Hey, there might be something that we're missing. Let's lean into that. Hey, there's a possibility we can explore. Let's lean into that. Hey, who's looking at the new opportunities for us? Let's lean into that, right? And that's a figure it out motion, by the way. Figure stuff out, not get stuff done. If you're on the treadmill, it's really hard, and you're out of breath on the treadmill. The idea of hey, let's go climb a hill is not fun. So the way you do this is align people and team members, but then let them tinker with AI. There was some early emails that came out from CEOs about, look, if you're not doing AI, tell me how you're going to use AI instead of hiring people. We focused on a lot of the negative side of it, but really the positive side is that we can build out so much momentum and so many ideas, and through tinkering, we're able to explore. And I think that's key. The other piece, kind of the second step, is sharing the idea of what are we talking about? Like I gave the analogy of the Gray's Anatomy book, and I said, hey, when you talk about new ideas or you talk about possibilities or opportunity, let's define it. Let's put it in front of us so we can talk about the thing and not have to explain the thing so much, and then try to persuade each other. And then the third piece of this is prioritizing being authentic and transparent and letting people struggle and letting them fail, so to speak. The whole you can't teach a kid to ride a bike in a seminar, which is a famous quote, I call it famous, from David Sandler. You can't teach a kid how to ride a bike in a seminar. Same type of thing. You can't help people be collaborative without letting them be collaborative. You can't help people be innovative unless you actually help them innovate. You can't just mandate go be innovative, right? So, how do you model these things out and how do you embrace it transparently and authentically in a small group? So, I view the team, the unit of a team, as really where the work gets done. And teams today are all evolving, and ideally they would be cross-functional. They wouldn't be departmental teams that are isolated silos. So I would look for cross-functional teams that are purposefully and intentionally set up to figure stuff out, that are given the space, the reign, the funding to tinker, and then encouraged to drive and solve some of the complex issues that exist. And then, fence them off, so to speak, from the get stuff done crowd, because the get stuff done will just steamroller over top of it. So, and I've been steamrolled many, many times. So, Aaron, back over to you. I think you want to perhaps show some things.
Yeah, I thought this might be a good time to show kind of the future of the structured data and how teams are interacting with it. So right here, I'm in Queris. This is the actual platform itself. It's intended for non-technical users, right? The BI team, the IT team will still set up dashboards and everything in here. But the magic of Queris is that non-technical folks can get an answer in seconds instead of putting in a ticket. So in this example, I hope it's big enough to.
Yeah, yeah, looks good over here.
Thanks. So I just typed in, what's the average price of products sold by city? A lot of other platforms are trying to do the natural language question piece. Two challenges with it. One, it only works on existing dashboards and models. It allows you to ask a follow-up question, which is pretty cool. But with Queris, I can actually generate dashboards from scratch just by typing in a question. Typed in a question, got this table, turn it into a chart, add it to a dashboard. Just that fast. So it's truly plain English because it's meant for non-technical users. I don't have to type in every field name exactly right. So other platforms that are trying to do natural language questions, it's kind of clunky. It comes down to the skill of the prompter and a perfect syntax, and you can't generate insights from scratch. So here, just a simple question gets me a table. It's interactive. I can turn it into a chart, various different chart types. I could turn it into a map, which is kind of cool, and zoom in and check out the actual different cities. And let's say it's with a partner. We did a webinar with a partner, and I want to send them a little chart on their lead flow. Well, I can put it in their color scheme. Maybe they're a marketing company with a nice kind of warm peach palette, or a PE firm with a gray and green. Fully interactive charts. Brian, what's your reaction when you see that, and how different is that from the back and forth that we often see from business users and the BI team to get what they want?
Yeah, I think oftentimes data and heavy analysis is wielded as um, the tool or the implement, if you will, to go drop it on somebody's desk or email it to them or confront them or do stuff to them. But the features that you're outlining, the colors, the schemes, the clicking, the conversations, these are about an invitation, right? This is about inviting people in to collaborate around these things. That's why the colors matter, not just like, oh, it's cool, we can change colors. It's one of those things where you're inviting people into their own brand, their own work, their own discussions, and encouraging them to tinker and explore, which is the opposite of, hey, here's the report that ran for 2 months. It's through 250 pages, kaboom, right? Now go wade through it. You just drop it on boom on the desk. And I think those two things are indicative of this dichotomy we've been outlining, the figuring it out nature of things versus the foregone conclusion and all the momentum of getting things done.
Mm,
And analysis is on the get stuff done side. Synthesis is on the figure stuff out side. And when you start figuring things out and exploring with natural language and having conversations and communicating with documents and data, you start seeing what's possible, right? And that's what this is saying to me is I don't have to have the answer. The goal is not to have the answer, which is many times what these reports are. Well, here's your answer.
right.
It's like jumping to a conclusion. Hey, my name is Brian. I know it's our first date, but here's how it's going to go down. And nobody likes that.
Yeah,
So,
we often say at Queris, the dashboard should be the beginning of something,
right.
the beginning of a conversation, not the end result.
That's right. That's right.
Right on. I talked earlier on about conflicting narratives and why that can be healthy. You talked about why that could be healthy in disagreement, but a CEO that we were talking to recently, it was like our fifth meeting. We're down the funnel with them. The CEO was seeing Queris for the first time. And when she saw these AI generated write-ups, she was very excited. Everyone else in the company was excited about everything else, the speed, the dashboards, the interactivity, the document search. But the CEO, she was really excited about this AI write-up. And I asked her why. And it was because of the conflicting narratives piece that I referenced earlier. She said, every meeting, I've got five different people telling me that the dashboard means something different. And wouldn't you know it, it's something that makes their department look good, right? We've got all these competing narratives and priorities, and everyone trying to pat themselves on the back and cover their rear end, right? These AI write-ups, the first value is kind of obvious, the speed, but the second one is that kind of a single source of truth, if you will, and cuts out some of the personal biases.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, um, It's interesting that this is making me think like, hey, I see a chart and I have no idea what it means. Like, how do you make that okay? Or I wonder what happens if I move this slider around. Like, how do you make that okay? Right? There's so much pressure on folks to have the answer.
Mhm.
It's like a software development team that's trying to really build some sort of complicated project, and then somebody just walks up to them and says, "Well, what's that? When's it going to be done?" It's like, well, geez, I don't know. Like, there's a lot going on here. So when you explore this and you say, well, what is the average product price? Like now what can I do with that? And you start getting more and more data points, because you're playing around with the data. And the good thing about this is also, you know, important, and I'd love to get your perspective on this, is like, where is this data coming from, and is it accurate enough to tinker? Because, exploring data can be risky. How do I know I can trust it if I come up with an insight that others haven't found or discovered?
Yeah, excellent question. And it's kind of the obvious question, right? It's like, wow, this looks great, but only if it's right. And it touches back on Kurt's question from earlier. So a couple things to mention on accuracy. Queris cannot produce a hallucination. Queris will tell you when it needs more context, whereas ChatGPT will pretend to be very certain when it's not. Queris will not do that. It'll tell you when it needs more context. And then there's about 5 different ways that we ensure consistency and accuracy. We can send out a point of view, which is a saved set of filters. So you create a saved set of filters, send it to all of your users, and then they get to slice and dice it from there. When users ask a natural language question, we can actually look at the query that was sent to the database, and it's going to be in the coding of the database. So, like, this is in PostgreSQL because this happens to be connected to a Postgres database. So, if a non-technical user got an answer that they weren't certain about or weren't confident in, they could just ask somebody to take a look at the actual code, the actual query that was sent to the database. But during the first month of being with Queris, we do what's called human in the loop, and it's really just monitoring all of the questions and answers that people are asking and getting, and refining the model where necessary. So accuracy is actually where we win in competitive kind of bake-offs all the time. The consistency of the accuracy as well. The exact same answer getting produced multiple times, whereas other folks, they'll complain on other platforms that they'll ask the exact same question twice and get 2 different answers, not in Queries.
No, that's a good point. Yeah. Great point.
It
Yeah, thanks.
also it first touches our small language model, which reduces hallucinations, and then it ensembles with the LLM of the customer's choosing. And that small language model we've been developing since 2017. It was around before ChatGPT, and it's just been refined for a long time. So it's a very mature SLM ensembled with the LLM.
Yeah, great.
And I love that you like the interactivity. We hear, everyone out there can measure the adoption of their dashboards. Queris customers see 4 times more dashboard adoption, 4 times more time spent on those dashboards. And I think it's because of the interactivity. Some people want a table, right? Like the CFO and CEO, they want a table. Sales and marketing, they want a chart. And it's so easy for everyone to get exactly what they're looking for. So this interactivity, I could share this chart as a URL. It's just 3 clicks to embed this whole chart. It could be 3 clicks to embed a whole dashboard. Apologies. I can embed a whole dashboard or a chart just like this. That's the first click. The second click is choosing whether it's a snapshot of data or rolling data. And the third click is grabbing the URL. And then I'll open up a new tab. Even in this embedded chart, still fully interactive. So I can create dashboards that are interactive. I can create PowerPoints. A story is a PowerPoint or a PDF that's interactive. So it's a published PowerPoint, published PDF. Brian, you can't change anything on there, but you would still get to play with the chart in that PDF or PowerPoint. People freak out about it. So just the level of interactivity and user adoption, that we see for our customers is really just makes me proud. We get people making data-driven decisions that used to make gut decisions.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Right on. And then, collaboration. So this is all collaboration. I could add someone to this thread and they would see my question. We could chat back and forth. I could at them. I could share this with a community, which is like a group chat. I have a marketing community, a sales, HR, IT, finance. And then part of the collaboration is that feedback loop, being able to talk, but part of the collaboration, I think, is the interactivity as well. So lots of different ways to collaborate inside Queris. I'm having a conversation with my data, my documents, and people in the same pane of glass.
And that docs button inside the chat, like that's where I can upload documentation myself.
Yeah, and let me show you just a super fast document example. So we can upload documents. You can also just sync with the folder of your choosing. You would always just sync with SharePoint or Google Drive, OneDrive, and connect to folders. The reason that connecting to folders is important is because it makes it really easy to set up the hierarchical permission sets. Pardon the scrolling here. So everyone can see the documents that they're supposed to see, but nothing they're not supposed to see. This example is for a large healthcare company who wants to try to save lives in a new way. They want to use ADT feeds to proactively identify severe behavioral health issues. So I uploaded a big fake ADT feed. These are not real people. We are privacy first, security first. And this healthcare company has access to this. It's just who goes to the hospital and why. They just can't make any use of it. So they've been working with Deloitte for about a year to try to glean insights on who needs our support proactively. So I uploaded that ADT feed and said, based on that ADT feed, what are some trends you notice for patients that end up having a severe issue? I asked that at 10:12, and at 10:12 in seconds, it answered. It cognitively generates this answer. Our document search capability is not just a control F. It's not just pulling out keywords. It generated this answer from scratch. So I was happy with that. I said, all right, let's test out what he's been working on for a year. Do you see any patients that might have a severe issue coming up? And in seconds, it proactively identified these 13 people out of about 300. This is just so powerful. I think it could truly save lives. And a really big healthcare company has been struggling to achieve this for a long time, and Queris does it out of the box. All right, folks, I know we're out of time. We're going to be sending everyone a recap of the webinar. And Brian, this was so tremendous. I learned a ton, and I hope everyone else did as well. Let me get your closing thoughts, if we could, as we wrap up, and then we'll be sending some folks some books after this.
Yeah, awesome. I appreciate that. My takeaway here, my call to action, if you will, would be to be intentional about the idea of figuring things out versus just, quote unquote, getting stuff done. I know the value is in many ways getting stuff done. There's also potential in figuring things out, and I think that's what you want to balance is where's the potential here, and that means curiosity is king, and go be curious about something. Start engaging and synthesizing, and the way to do that is through collaboration and collaborating with people and documents and data and engaging with it with AI. It'll talk back to you. So go see what it says, right? Thanks so much, Aaron, for having me today. It's been fun to collaborate. And
Oh,
we'll
this is
see.
tremendous. Yes, and really excited for parts 3 through 7 of the webinar series. We'll be getting you all invitations to that and getting more and more tactical. These first 2 sessions have been great and kind of visionary, philosophical, and we're going to get more and more nitty gritty coming up. Really excited for it. Thank you all so much, and thank you, Dr. Lambert.